Hey, KU fans, welcome back to the KU Sports Hour here at KUsports.com. I'm your host, Matt Tait, and I have your two favorite people. Last week, they were my favorite people. This week, they're your favorite people.
I feel kind of honored now. I mean, like, I know you. I've been around you way too much.
Yeah, you knew I was lying.
Yeah. So it's like, if we are the favorite people of all these listeners, wow. I mean, that's an important life moment for me.
Sure. Well, Benton's married. Shane has a girlfriend he lives with. Yeah. Big deal. Maybe they listen. Maybe they don't. Hopefully they don't.
They do not.
They definitely don't.
So I was parents.
No.
Neither one. Braden's
nobody likes me.
Braden's parents listen.
I'm going to be honest. I don't know. There's a outside chance my father might listen to this at some point.
Strong man.
Shout out, Skip, if you're listening.
That was great. Talk to us about your father then, if he is listening. Does he wear NBA socks? Does he wear Jordans?
He doesn't wear any of those things.
Is he 9 feet tall?
No, just an average sized male.
Wow.
Yep.
That's exciting.
No NBA apparel in his wardrobe. I don't. No.
Does he?
Can't be.
Does he have the blood, the NBA blood, or no?
That's a great question. I mean, I feel like I did not inherit any NBA blood from my father.
Right.
But I blazed that trail anyway.
Right. Yeah, you clearly did. Knocked everything down in your path. So the answer to this question would be difficult then. It's not obvious who your father's favorite NBA player of all time is. Is that a hard question? Will you have to think about it?
I will have to think about it. I will probably have to ask.
Is there even one? I mean, do you know definitively that there is one?
Probably. Okay. I think he watched a little bit in the 90s and then moved on.
Nice.
Then moved on with his life.
Yeah, that's a good era though.
Yeah.
So it could be Anthony Mason for all you know.
I don't think it's Anthony Mason.
That'd be awesome.
Might be Danny Ainge.
There you go.
I don't know.
There you go.
Dan Marley.
Thunder.
Yeah.
Love that. That'd be a good answer. Yeah. I wouldn't hate that one at all. Shane, who's your favorite NBA player of all time?
Of all time.
Yeah.
Wow.
And just to put you in a good space. I don't want you to go into this tunnel blindly. Mm-hmm. If you say Steph Curry, you're off.
He's not going to say Steph Curry.
No,
I know what his answer is.
Okay, good.
I mean, it's LeBron James.
Oh my God.
So
you knew that?
Yeah. Everybody knows that. Everybody who knows me knows that. So apparently I'm not your favorite person.
No, not anymore. Last week, it's a rough week for you. You tumbled down the rankings. I don't hate that. I mean, LeBron, there's nothing not to like. I don't hate that, but it's pretty weak.
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm a bit younger than everybody else in this podcast room, so my options are a lot more limited.
I'll give you that. Yeah, I'll give you that. Yeah, you could have said some worse answers for sure. Steph Curry would have been worse.
You might have noticed that Matt Tait hates Steph Curry.
I've gathered.
Not a fan.
He once told me.
Oh boy, this is gonna be. Close your ears, Skip.
He once told me, and this was before Seth Curry was even drafted, but he was talking about Seth Curry and how he was definitely better than Steph Curry.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
Tougher. I think I said tougher.
Tougher. Yeah, you might have said tougher. Yeah. Either way,
he's not a better shooter. I'll give you that. I'll give you that. Big love though, Seth. If you're listening, I appreciate you, man. I know it can't be easy in that shadow. Dell and Steph, and then you're this other guy.
Tough.
Real tough. Speaking of tough, it's been a tough week for the Kansas basketball program. On Monday afternoon, they officially, I don't know when they got it into their inboxes or mailboxes, but sometime Monday, KU received the official notice of allegations from the NCAA. And obviously that's something that many people were expecting and really waiting on, but it officially did come. And KU, a few hours later, Yahoo, of course, broke that story first. And a few hours later, KU was ready with responses and statements from Bill Self and Athletic Director Jeff Long and Chancellor Doug Girard. And then, of course, Coach Self is represented by a couple of attorneys. They also released a statement, all of them strongly worded, all of them clearly showing that KU is ready for a fight and going to fight hard in this thing. I think the notice of allegation proves that the NCAA is going to fight hard with this thing too. That thing was 20 pages. I've seen 80, 90, 100-page documents like that before. I was thrilled beyond belief that this one wasn't that long. Right, yeah, because I felt like you could really digest it. You you could really read it all. But to pack so much punch in just 20 pages was eye-opening. I mean, that's really one of the things that jumped out at me, that there was so much in there. And a lot of it we knew, right? I mean, most of this stuff was dragged through the trial and prevalent in the media and throughout that investigation. I mean, things that kept coming up. But we didn't know exactly what the NCAA was going to, latch onto and include in its allegations against Kansas. And so it was one thing to know that, hey, yeah, there's some stuff about Billy Preston, there's some stuff about Silvio, all these things. It's one thing to know that. It's another to know that this is what we think about it and this is what we think you did wrong. And that's exactly what Monday was all about. So we'll talk about it here for another 15 minutes or so and then move on to football and do our regular thing at the end with reader questions. But it's definitely this is a massive, massive, massive story. I don't know that many people, if any, have covered anything like this because it's a new landscape, it's a new time. The Rice Commission, which was born from this investigation and federal trial and all that stuff, it has paved some new paths, and so some of the stuff that is happening moving forward is stuff that has never gone down and stuff that people haven't covered and responded to and reacted to and been through before. So before we go too deeply into it, is there anything that jumped out at either of you guys just upon first seeing it and maybe even just reading whatever you've read about it, whether it's national columns or just KU's responses or things we've written or whatever? I mean, is there anything that's just so strongly sticking with you that it's the first thing you think of?
For me, it's just like, this is going to be an ongoing ordeal for, we really don't know how long at this point, because like you mentioned, it's kind of unprecedented in its nature just because of all the changes that have come about. And it's clear that KU is going to battle this. And it seems that they might, have to take it to the federal court level, beyond just the NCAA back and forth.
Yeah, it certainly could go there. I mean,
so what you were telling me, was it somebody, one of the dozens of people I've talked to about this subject in the past 48 hours.
Yeah, no kidding.
North Carolina, its whole ordeal lasted maybe 7 years or something like that, from start to finish.
You're talking about the academic, right? Yeah.
So, I mean, like, these things take forever with the NCAA. Like, KU's been involved with so many NCAA things, like, whether it's a player's eligibility
right?
Or more recently, the more serious things with Billy Preston and Silvio De Sousa. Like, I feel like people are always complaining about how long it takes,
right?
And get used to it. Like, we have no idea how long this thing's going to drag out.
Yeah, that's a good point. Shane, anything?
Yeah, given that
don't copy Benton's answer either.
Given that we already, the only information that came out is the information that we already knew, basically.
Sure.
Everything that came out it's what's been out for several months from the FBI trial. So the only thing that really stands out is the fact that, now we're a week away from late night, and this is going to be a story not only then, but it's going to be a story throughout the year for a team that has national title aspirations. So I think that's the most unique thing about all of this, is that, obviously isn't going to factor into this year at all. And so you're talking about a team that has a lot of national title aspirations, and it'll be interesting to see how these players respond to it. I have a feeling that they're not necessarily paying attention too much to it, other than when they're going to be asked about it and stuff like that. But it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. A lot of times when these things happen, it's after a coach is dismissed or fired or resigns or something like that. I mean, I did a little work the other day just kind of trying to see, well, first of all, in doing this research that I was trying to do to basically see, what kind of blue blood programs have been hit with this lack of institutional control tag that KU has been hit with now. And if you're listening and this is the first you're hearing about this, then I guess we'll spell it out real quickly for you. But I'd be shocked if you're listening and this is the first you've heard of it. But 3 major violations, level 1 variety. Each one of those carries a maximum penalty of 5 years probation and a 5-year postseason ban and a year suspension for a head coach. So that's the maximum. So not likely that KU is going to get that for all of these allegations. But level 1 is the most severe and carries the most severe punishments. So it remains to be seen if there are going to be any punishments handed out. But if they are, then you're talking about the most serious that you can get. Now, beyond that, the lack of institutional control is the most serious. I mean, out short of the death penalty. So that's a big deal. This is major allegations. So I think that, one of the things about the sort of into this, like you were talking about, Shane, I mean, most of these things happen. I was looking at the research, Ohio State football. I found that most of these things, I mean, it's lack of institutional control doesn't get used as much in basketball. It is historically speaking, it is mostly football. It certainly happened in basketball, but not nearly as much as football. So I was just trying to look at the blue blood thing and, hey, what major programs have been hit with this, have suffered a postseason ban, and have survived it? And Ohio State football was the perfect example of that. But again, when theirs went down in 2011, I think, then they were banned from postseason play in 2012. Their deal was Jim Tressel resigned. And so the year that they were ineligible for the postseason, they had a new coach. It happened to be Urban Meyer, which happened to be a pretty important part of their survival. I mean, if they had hired some bum, it could have been a huge blow to the program, but they didn't. They hired a great coach, an all-timer. And, they went 12-0 the year they weren't eligible for the postseason. So essentially that cost them a shot at a national championship, which therefore makes that penalty as severe as it can be, right? It's not like it cost them the Insight Bowl. I mean, this cost them a national championship shot. So that was pretty severe. The year after they were 12-1 and back in business, the year after that they were 14-1 and won the national title. So you're talking about just a couple years removed from the ban. All of a sudden, this powerhouse blue blood type college football program is back rolling. I really do think that was a huge part of that was Urban Meyer. I mean, he's a fantastic coach and obviously knows how to win at that level. So anyway, the point being, Jim Tressel wasn't there. He wasn't around, right? Bill Self is here, and he's going to coach this season and maybe beyond. Who knows? I mean, right now we don't know anything. But as this thing plays out, it's not like this is talk about a former coach. This is talk about the guy who's coaching your team. So I think that makes it really interesting what you said, Shane. I mean, just about how it affects this team. How big of a distraction will it be? I think that can go both ways. I think the answer can be horribly distracting because it's not going to go away. It's going to hang. It's going to hang. It's going to hang. But at the same time, what does KU do and what does Bill Self do when the distractions are at their loudest? They tighten that circle. They close their quarters and they really take on that us against the world mentality. When you can give Kansas basketball an us against the world chip on its shoulder, just strictly basketball speaking, on the court, wins and losses, you're talking about a pretty motivated bunch, a group that's going to feel like it has a lot to prove and wants to go out and show a lot. So I think that will definitely be interesting to see how much of a distraction it is, but I think these guys will, in many ways, maybe flourish because of it.
For this team in particular, I wonder if, obviously the things you mentioned, you can kind of rally around this, but
yeah, right.
But also, there's zero chance that they're going to suffer a postseason ban this year, right?
Zero chance. Right,
so
right.
There's also that. There's
huge.
If you're in that locker room, you say, this doesn't impact what we're doing this year whatsoever. We still, all of our same goals are still in front of us, and I'm sure that they're confident in how far this team can go this year. Have a ton of awesome talent returning,
right,
and guys that expect to win and get back on that Big 12 title streak, start a new one, and make a deep run in the NCAA tournament, not get pasted against Auburn in Salt Lake City.
Yeah,
in the second round.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, I think that's a big part of it. What Ben's talking about, obviously, again, I'm sure most of you listening have heard this over and over, read this over and over, but in case some of you haven't, we got to point it out. I mean, Kansas basically has 90 days to respond to these allegations. After that, the NCAA will have 60 days to respond to that. After that, they have to schedule and conduct a hearing, which who knows how long either of those things will take. Regardless, you're probably looking at March or April before that's even close to done. And then rulings come after that. So you're definitely looking at the end of the basketball season. I would say that's almost a certainty. And maybe this thing drags into next summer and we don't know anything officially about the rulings until then. And if the rulings go against Kansas, then as Benton mentioned, then you could be talking about Kansas taking the NCAA to court and actually having this thing play out in a court of law. Because right now this is just an NCAA thing. It is not. It's hard to keep that straight because the federal trial was very much lawyers and criminal behavior and things like that, government at work, right? But this is not that. This is the NCAA at work. And I think one thing that's really interesting out of this is if you're a Kansas fan and you read the notice of allegations or even read reports what were in them, right now that it doesn't look good, man. It doesn't look good, but that's how those are designed. Kansas hasn't said anything yet. They haven't. I mean, they've obviously responded with statements, but they haven't defended themselves yet. I guess is what I should say. They obviously outlined that they plan to, and they plan to do so with everything they have. But right now, you look at that thing, and it just doesn't look. It doesn't look like anything you'd want to find yourself mixed up in, and so it'll be really interesting to see. KU has said in their response that they will make their response public. They don't have to do that, and I think that's something that's super intriguing to me because the next 90 days or however long they take to put their response together, there's going to be a lot going on. There's going to be a lot of meetings. There's going to be a lot of lawyers involved. There's going to be a lot of strategizing, and they're gonna defend this thing with everything they've got. At some point, the results of those efforts will be put into a document that gets sent to the NCAA, and then we will get to see that document much like we got to see this document. I
love reading documents.
Right? What do you think? Over,
so
under?
Much fun.
20 pages, over, under.
Oh, I'm going to say under because it's, to me, like the document that the NCAA just sent out. I mean, it's more like a legal document.
Sure.
I mean, I guess I shouldn't assume that this KU response won't look like a legal document, but there are just so many parts of it that I feel like I don't know. Maybe I just don't know what to expect at this point.
Yeah, no one does, and that's fine. My first inclination is under as well, but the more I thought about it, I think over, man. I think this thing is going to be
100 pages.
So detailed. Maybe not triple digits, but I think it is going to be so detailed. I think it is going to be. All right, you want to know what happened? Here's what happened. I had Hardee's for lunch. I dropped my straw on the floor. I went back to get another one. I think it's going to have some serious details, and it should. I mean, right now they're fighting for their name. They're fighting for Bill Self, certainly fighting for his legacy, and KU basketball is fighting for its future. So to think anything else, they're obviously. They're going to go as hard as they have to go for this thing. So it'll be interesting. The one thing I said, KU has 90 days. On Wednesday, the NCAA, the AP anyway, reported that the NCAA has actually suspended those response deadlines. What that means exactly, I can't grasp yet. I know that they are not planning on doing anything until November 20th. That includes issuing any further notices of allegations
to other
programs.
Yeah.
Right. So it could be as simple as, look, we're dealing with NC State and we're dealing with Kansas, and we want it to be known that we're not going to send any more out right now because we can't juggle that much at the same time.
That would make sense.
So that's probably what it is. I've talked to a couple people that seem to think that's the most likely thing here. Does it benefit Kansas? I don't think that it does or doesn't benefit Kansas. I think Kansas is still going about its business, saying, hey, we've got to get our response prepared and we've got to get it out there as quickly as possible. I talked to a couple people the other day. The belief from those people was that they're not going to take the full 90 days. My initial thought was, yes, they'll take every bit of the 90 days because you do want this to play out and drag out. I mean, as much as you'd rather know the answer, especially if it's good news, you do want to take all the time allotted because that's going to help you not only build your case, but also ensure that it doesn't affect this season. So I initially thought they would take the full 90. I don't think that anymore. I think they will be, in a hurry, so to speak, to kind of expedite the whole thing so that they can get their side of the story out there. Right now, we have a 20-page document of some pretty damning allegations. And the sooner Kansas can get its defense out there for the public to read, the better they're going to be, because it's gonna state some things that people are going to go, oh, okay. And whether you believe it or not, whether the NCAA believes it or not, who knows? But that doesn't really matter. It's getting it out there will help to change the narrative, and I think that's an important part of this right now.
It's probably also beneficial for KU that they basically have been able to spend the past several months kind of forming their defense, forming this response.
For sure.
Because even though the NOA just came, they knew what was going to be in there because all these things were things that came out during the federal trial, right? So I mean, they knew that the NCAA was going to have these bullet points, and they, I'm sure, started formulating, well, here's our response to that. Here's how we defend this, So it's a lot further along than, you're just getting this document and you're like, oh, wow, this is what they found. They knew what they were going to read.
Yeah. Advantage, no doubt about it. You had time to work and time to gather your strategy as much as anything. But I think it's going to be really interesting. I think that suspension thing is interesting, but I think it more probably affects NC State. The 90-day period for NC State would expire on October 7th. KU's would be December 22nd. So December 22nd is a month after that November 20th deadline they're talking about. October 7th is 6 weeks before that. So, I think I've been trying to look at the NC State thing, because there were level 1 violations there. Obviously, they were the first major program to receive a notice of allegations as well. And I was trying to look for similarities and things. And there are some, of course. I mean, there's allegations of former NC State players being paid, just like there are at Kansas, or with the Kansas notice of allegations anyway. So, but really, they do seem to be different. I do think, one thing that seems quite obvious is that this is not just for Kansas, but for all of college basketball. This is just the beginning. It does seem like there are more to come, and I think the suspension thing is probably an indication of that as much as anything, because if they had all the time and all the resources and all the money in the world, which the NCAA doesn't have, they'd probably throw all these at once and say, hey, here we go. Mm-hmm. But they don't, and they have to handle this, and each one is a massive undertaking and a massive fight. And so, yeah, you mentioned the North Carolina thing, Benton. This thing collectively, not just for Kansas, but collectively, it could play out over a decade. I mean, we could still be talking about this 10 years from now. Maybe not. I mean, there could be major changes. This Kansas thing, I do think, with as strong as the NCAA is going after Kansas in that notice of allegations, and with as strong as Kansas's response has been thus far, I think that could be major. The ramifications and the outcome of that could be a landmark type of thing. I mean, it could change the NCAA as we know it. It could change the future of these types of situations as we know it, and that's big time. I mean, that's why this thing is so crucial to just not only KU's future and Bill Self's future and all of that, but just to the future of college basketball. And that's why I think all eyes are watching this thing.
Yeah, I wonder you kind of mentioned like the long-term effects that this will have. I mean, who knows what they could be? I mean, the NCAA might, obviously they're trying to like take the high ground here and kind of, they have to save some face after that federal trial and all the things that came out. And I just feel like maybe 10 years from now, this whole system doesn't look anything like it does now. That's right. Yeah, you can't rule that out.
No doubt. I mean, especially if KU's successful.
Is that good for the NCAA?
Right.
Ultimately?
No,
Might not be. I don't know.
If KU's defense is successful and furthermore, if KU takes the NCAA to court and wins there, yeah, you're talking about potential for major changes and reshaping everything we know. So it's going to be wild, man. It's going to be really interesting to cover. We'll keep an eye on it every day. It'll have a heartbeat every day. But I really think most of it from this point on until the response comes is largely going to be speculation, and all the work will be done behind closed doors. KU's made it clear that they're not going to talk about the specifics of this. They're not going to talk about the ongoing process, frankly, just because they don't have to. They've said what they've said. Now they go to work and they try to throw this thing together and defend themselves as best as possible. So it'll be the two things that will definitely be most interesting are the result, right? I mean, what does KU have to say, and does it work? Is it a sufficient defense to get them out of what appears to be some hot water right now? And then the other thing is more immediate, and I think that's just, for me, it's the distractions. the distractions on Bill Self and this team this season, even though it won't affect results, wins, losses, all that. They're good there. They might as well go win the national title. KU fans might as well enjoy the hell out of it. I mean, you know, you can put all that stuff away if you're a fan, because just enjoy these guys. Go root for them, just like any other year. But those are the two biggest things for sure that are sort of out in the distance and what you want to see. I think recruiting. We haven't really mentioned recruiting, but there's no doubt that that's a third sort of part of this. And I wrote something the Monday night when this first broke. I mean, that's where you'll see it show up first. If you want to talk about hurting Kansas, regardless of the outcome, Kansas could defend itself perfectly and not be punished in any way by the NCAA at the end of the day and all that stuff. But I think Kansas will be punished through the recruiting trail. I mean, I just think that kids and parents and the like will they've already shown that throughout the investigation and the trial and all that, when Kansas was just merely tied to it. Now that Kansas is in the crosshairs of the NCAA, it's almost inevitable that kids are going to say, I don't know, man, I got some other good options. I'm just going to steer clear of that because I want to play in the tournament, or I want to play for a coach that I know is going to be there, or whatever it is. So I think, the more immediate area where that'll show up is recruiting. I was able to talk to Trey White. He's a class of 2022 kid, just moved up to number 10 in the 24/7 sports rankings in the 2022 class. He committed in June. He's a monster. He's growing. 6'6", 200 pounds right now already as a high school sophomore. Great kid. And I talked to him Tuesday night. He's the only kid committed right now in any of the future classes. So it was worth reaching out and just saying, hey, what do you think? And as expected, I mean, you could have predicted this. His demeanor was, oh, man, I love those coaches. I love KU. KU's a dream school. I'm not worried about it. And really, of all the kids on the planet, he's the one that should be least worried about it, because he's the class of 2022.
Yeah, I was going to say, he won't be here for a while.
This will be done by then. It may not be done for all the schools, and they may be on to other people, but Kansas will know its fate before Trey White gets here. So, great kid. He's a straight A student, fun to talk to. He's a real talent too, and it's going to be interesting to just keep a track of his career and whatnot. But yeah, he had a great spirit. He was clearly not fazed by this. Jerence Howard went down to San Antonio Tuesday to visit him and check in with him, and Trey said that meant something. That was cool to see, because you do wonder, and you hear these things and you read these things, and it's nice for these kids to be reassured. But there's no doubt that other kids, as happened just during the trial, there's no doubt that other kids are going to just kind of take KU off their list, maybe quietly, or maybe leave them on there and just not pick them, or whatever it is. But it's almost impossible to think it won't hurt recruiting in some way, and that not only hurts the immediate, but that does hurt the future, right? You're talking about shaping future rosters, and so all that's an important factor there too. I think it'll be really interesting to see how that plays out. Any final thoughts on this stuff? Anything else that's sticking with you about the notice of allegations and where KU basketball sits right now before we move on to Lester Miles?
Well, I mean, you were just obviously talking about recruiting, and I just wonder, like, you mentioned like the 2022 commitment is the only one in place right now. What's that 2020 class going to look like? Because there are going to be holes to fill. Devon Dotson is going to be leaving, I'm assuming.
Yeah, safe assumption.
Udoka
gone.
Silvio
likely.
Yeah. So I mean, those are significant roles to fill.
Sure. And there could be others too.
Yeah, for sure.
Mitch Lightfoot's a senior. I think he's going to redshirt. But if he doesn't and he plays, then
he's done.
He has to be done. Yeah. Isaiah Moss is a grad transfer senior.
So
he's gone.
He only has 1 year.
Right.
Yeah.
So
there's so many spots that you're going to have to fill, and with this kind of cloud hanging over the program, I'm just going to assume you're not going to get nearly the type of talent you usually get. I feel like they kind of took a hit even in 2019. I know they had 4-star guys that they liked, but
right.
How long had it been since KU didn't have a 5-star?
Yeah, a long time.
In its recruiting class, and that finally happened. And I mean, that class kind of filled out as this federal trial was playing out. So I just wonder, like, I feel like it's gonna be more of a hit in the coming months, right?
Yeah, I saw someone on a message board or a comment section or something saying, well, could this be a blessing in disguise? I thought it was funny they worded it that way. I love it. But the point wasn't bad. I mean, now I wouldn't call any of this a blessing, disguised or otherwise, but the point wasn't bad. And the point was Bill Self's done pretty good with 3- and 4-year guys. Devontae Graham, Frank Mason, Perry Ellis, Wayne Selden. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. He's had some success with those types of players, and there are a lot of them. You're mentioned in the 2019 class. I think there are a lot of those in that class. I think Christian Brown is one of those guys. I think Tristan Inaruna is one of those guys. I mean, so if these guys are great at what they do. The coaches, they're great recruiters, they're great coaches, they're great salesmen for the program, and so they're going to figure it out. If that means they have to stay away from the top 20 guys and all those 5-star kids, there are a lot of talents out there, man. Ochai Agbaji is one of them. He was not even ranked, and then KU found him, and then he jumps 4 million spots into the rankings and is a future pro all of a sudden. Inaruna is another type of player like that, right? I mean, there's guys like that out there. They're just going to have to work harder probably to go find them and then coach them up when they get them. So it'll be harder. I mean, it's pretty nice when the Joel Embiids and the Andrew Wiggins and those types of players are just automatically interested in you and you're in the mix for those guys because you're Kansas. But yeah, I mean, I think if anything, what this coaching staff and what Bill Self obviously has proven that he's all about is if there's a challenge, I'll face it, and I'm going to go get it, and I'm going to compete my tail off. And so that will continue into the recruiting game no matter how this affects it. And it'll be interesting to see how they do have to adjust, if they do have to. So there's a decent overview of it all. I mean, a lot of that you've probably heard, but that's our thoughts. Shane was really outspoken in this.
I decided you probably have written a lot more about it, so you should take the lead.
Yeah, I talked a lot there. I didn't intend to, but you are right. I have written a lot about it and read even more, and it's interesting. I do think that the whole world watching, or the whole college basketball world watching anyway, is an indication of just how big this thing is. This is a serious deal and sort of unprecedented. So speaking of unprecedented, let's move on to Kansas football.
Now that's a transition.
Thank you.
I don't understand the transition, but it's an impressive transition.
I don't really either. But, Big 12 opener, they're right there, had a shot to win. A lot of these players are saying they should have.
Okay.
I think
all right.
so.
I see where you're going with this now. Yeah.
I'll take that. 29-24, right? That's the final home loss to West Virginia. I was out of town, didn't see it. You guys were both there, so I'm going to rest my voice for a little bit here and let you guys take over, and then we'll take some reader questions before we wrap this thing up. Not as many this week, but look, this is what I want to talk about out of the gate, man. They're 2-2, right?
Yeah.
They could be 4-0, right?
Yeah.
They could be 0-4, right?
I mean,
it doesn't feel like
doesn't
0-4 is
like
possible.
0-4.
Well, certainly could have lost to Indiana State.
Could have.
There's
They had to
no
score late.
question.
Yeah.
So that one's got to be a possible.
Yeah.
And then you get down 10-0 to Boston College.
And you're 0-2.
Yeah.
Are you able to recover? Is what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
see what you mean.
I get it. They handled
this alternate
Boston
reality,
College. Right?
You're 0-4.
So I just
suppose any record's really possible if you look at it hard enough.
Oh man, I wasn't ready for any of that. But no, I just wanted to point out that like I'm hearing a lot of the we should be 4-0 crowd, and I, as much as that's cool to hear and the enthusiasm and all that, and they're not wrong. I think it's important for those people to remember that you could also be 0-4.
Yeah.
So
There was a similar sentiment last year when you're talking about they should have won another game or two, but also the TCU win was kind of fortunate because there was a fumble in KU's red zone. So there's a lot of games like that where you go back and forth either way.
such is sports. Yeah, but anyway, you guys were there. It sounds like. Well, first we should talk about the refs, right? I mean, that's what everybody was talking about after the game, and we don't have to go on and on and on about it. I wasn't there. I saw a replay. I saw a hell of a play by a West Virginia player who probably saved his team the game right there to get that ball. What were your thoughts when you first saw that onside kick and saw the outcome? I mean, obviously the rule is something that had to be looked up by a lot of people. Not everybody's just got that handy,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
So what were you thinking when it was playing out?
Well, watching it live, I mean, like most of the people in the stands, I was like, oh, this is
Yeah.
Jamal Horn's ball. This
Yeah.
is KU's ball. This was a huge play. But as the refs were kind of talking it over, I mean, I didn't know what was going to come out of that conversation. There was obviously a flag on the field, but I mean, the ball had traveled more than 10 yards. That's like the first thing you think about. And it seemed like, okay, this was just a one-on-one play and KU won it. But I think it's just an obscure enough rule that people don't know about it. Like the ball was essentially like a pooch kick because it was in the air. It wasn't bounced. Like a lot of onside kicks, you'll see kind of bounce. And then if it's bouncing and it's gone 10 yards,
It's live.
free for all.
Right, okay.
You know, do what you got to do. Do whatever. It doesn't
Right,
matter.
right.
This is different because it was in the air. It was a totally different play. So I think that's where a lot of the confusion came from.
Sure.
And I mean, like count me in that group. I didn't know why that ruling had happened. And then, thankfully we work with a lot of people who cover this team, and everybody's looking up different rules, and we kind of figure it out. And by the end of the game, to me, it was like, okay,
Obvious.
this is the right ruling. And I think Les Miles pretty much ultimately said that too. I mean, he doesn't like the rule.
That's it, right?
He doesn't like the rule, but it was the right rule.
There
It
you
was
go.
the right ruling.
Yeah, when the refs huddle up, I initially thought it was offsides. They were debating if Horn was offsides, and so I was like watching it in slow mo, like trying to figure out if he was past the line or not. And then I ultimately decided, okay, there's no way that's what they're calling. And then after, it seemed like forever is when they called that rule, and I had no idea that was a rule. Like, also didn't know he kicked it off the tee. Like, I wasn't really watching that kick and going, why is there a difference if he kicks it off the tee versus kicking it off the ground and stuff? So it was very confusing. Obviously, when you finally look at the rule and find out what the rule is, it makes sense. But I'm still not certain why that is safer than any other type of onside kick when you're launching it up in the air and you have free reign to just annihilate someone. So it does seem like a weird rule, or like a weird, I guess, a specific way not to do an onside.
Yeah. For people like myself, if he did he touch him? Is that the issue? He didn't give him room to make the catch, right?
Yeah, basically Horn was in his like 1 yard radius.
So if he stays a yard away and then rips the ball out of his
That
hands,
would have been fine.
totally fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That's where the flag came. Like, basically, those guys are body to body as that play is being made, and Horn rips it out of his hands. But it's the same as if, like, just think about if it happened downfield. You got to give that guy space who's way downfield
Yeah. Good point.
fielding a kick. So it's
Yeah,
the
you see
exact
that all the
same
time, right?
situation.
Guys just
Yeah.
blast guys.
Yeah.
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 Right. Okay.
So
Interesting. Well, that was third quarter, right?
yep.
So
Correct.
didn't cost him the game, didn't win him the game. It wasn't the
No,
automatic.
and
I mean, it would have been a momentum swing for sure.
I thought it was still a momentum swing. The only thing that it did was cost KU points because West Virginia took over in field goal position.
Yeah.
And they happened to not be going into the wind at that point of the game. So it was just a regular, easy field goal for them. Basically handed 3 easy points as a result.
And then at the end, it would have been 26-24, and KU would have had only a field goal to win instead
Right.
of needing a touchdown.
Yeah.
Or, who knows how it would have played out.
But I honestly, like, obviously that it cost them points, but I thought it still provided momentum because the defense came out and they were so fired up. It was 3 and out.
Right.
And they did their job exactly the way they needed to. And then the offense came out and they had a 75-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
I thought the play, just seeing that play and just kind of like the anger that comes with the call, I think fired up everybody on the KU sideline and they responded. So the major hit was the 3 points.
Sure.
Yeah, considering the way the defense had played up to that point anyways, it didn't seem like a terrible decision because Bryce had mentioned after the game that they consider themselves, the fire extinguishers. They're going to put out any fires no matter what position they're in. And so worst case scenario, they were in that position that they ultimately were in, and they just gave a field goal. Like, the defense responded, and then one play later, the offense scores a touchdown on a 75-yard bomb to Andrew Parchment, and it's a 3-point game. So at the worst, when it all came about, I mean, KU actually was given 4 more points. They were down 3 instead of being down 7.
Right.
So it wasn't the end of the world, I thought.
Yeah, good point. How much of it, I mean, you saw the crowd, you guys were there. How much of that play is what you need to see if you're a KU fan? I mean, that was a coach going for it, right? And not, it would have been real easy to kick off there and just play the game straight and you have time left and all that. But that was a coach going for it and trying to take something and and trying to dictate what happens, dictate your fate instead of just reacting or letting it come to you. And I wonder how much of that was why the fans seem to really appreciate this effort. I know it was a loss, and everybody walked out of there wishing KU had won, but there was an ovation afterwards, right? I mean, it seemed like the fan base, not only from those who were there, but also just people I've talked to and things that I've heard, it seemed like this was that game where they were like, this is cool, man. We've got a team we can actually root for.
Yeah, I kind of loved the way that Najee Stevens-McKenzie described it afterward. Like, he's obviously not from Kansas, but he now has friends who are from Kansas, and what he's heard from them is like, it's watchable.
Yeah.
That's such a great term, watchable.
Great
Because how many games over the past 5 to 6 years, maybe going back even further, have you just been like,
Definitely going back further.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just talking from personal experience.
Yeah, no, I know.
That I've
So am
seen
I.
a lot. Yeah, I know. But I mean, like, those days of unwatchable football, like, why am I here? Why am I watching this team on TV if you're a fan? Why did I come all the way to this game if you're a fan who has season tickets?
Right.
I think those days are behind KU now. I mean,
Yeah,
this
the
was
competition gets tougher, so we got to find out, right? But I think you're right.
Yeah, I know that the guys in that locker room weren't interested in moral victories, but like, this is progress. I don't. It's tough to say that if you're a player in that locker room, but it clearly is.
Yeah, I think you're right, Shane.
Yeah, to go back to what you were talking about, that kind of move, the onside kick, it's a move that this team has to make.
Bingo.
At least early on here, because you're going to be more than a touchdown underdog against everybody else that you play this year. And pretty much from the early on, that you're outmatched against every Big 12 team you're going to face. And so you want to see more aggressive moves. You want to see your coaching staff take chances. And it felt like the previous coaching staff didn't take as much chances as they should have. So I think this is the move that kind of signals hope for KU fans, because, hey, they're going for it. And it may not work out completely, but it's something different from what they've seen in years past. Now, maybe when talent is about more equal in the future, maybe you take less of those chances.
Yeah, I've always thought that. I love your point. I mean, I always thought David Beatty coached games the way like he thought that the talent was equal. We're going to kick a field goal here.
We're going to punt
or
here.
We're going to punt here, or whatever.
We're going to punt again.
Yeah.
But I'm going to call a timeout, decide if I want to punt, which I always punt.
There you go. Keep
Spoiler
going.
alert.
Keep going. No, I always thought that was ridiculous, though, because you were clearly the less talented team.
Yeah.
You were clearly the underdog. You clearly had to steal some momentum and some opportunities and some chances and things like that. And I just thought he played it so straight all the time. And look, that's what football coaches are supposed to do. Like, but you also have to know your personality, know your reality. And I really thought that was a major shortcoming of his. Maybe the worst, in my opinion. I mean, it just seemed like he just didn't in-game coach it the way it should have been done. And that's, to your point, Shane, that's exactly what's happening here. The talent is creeping toward equal. They're trending in the right direction. The guys are playing hard, and you, in order to even that thing out, you got to go take those chances. And so that was a cool thing to see, and cool to see Les do it. Way cooler to see the fans appreciate it, because that's what's been missing. I mean, obviously, coaching and talent and production and things like that have been missing too, but the fan buy-in's been missing, and I think that I think it's there in a fairly big manner right now. And could it go away? Yeah, it could. I mean, there's some tough games coming up. Oklahoma's coming 11 a.m. TCU's no joke. They just lost. KU's got to go down there this weekend. You got to show up and you got to compete there, and you can lose. You can lose, but make it watchable, like you're saying, Benton, and compete. And if you do that, people will show up for the Oklahoma game and say, okay, let's see what happens. So this is going to be really interesting to kind of track that going forward. But 4 games in, heading into Week 5, if you're a Kansas fan or you're anyone associated with the program, whether you should be 4-0 or 3-0 or 2-0 or 26-0 or whatever it is, you'd take this. Somebody would have said you'll be 2-2 and you'll have teams that have competed and played hard and had moments where they've really looked pretty good, you'd absolutely take this. And now you got to keep getting better. So that's the key from here on out. Do they keep getting better?
Yeah, and I mean, like as you mentioned, the schedule is much more difficult. So I think it's good. It might be kind of hard for, as we watch this play out, it might be hard for some fans to kind of see that progress being made if the results aren't as, you know, if you're losing by bigger margins. But I think that's possible too. I think they could go to TCU and lose by 10 and have played better than they have all season. I mean, we don't know that it's going to play out that way.
But boy, would that get people's attention.
Yeah, right.
No question. Speaking of people, here's my third and final transition of the day. We got about 15 minutes left, and we might as well listen to what the people think. The people want to talk to Shane. They want to hear from Shane. So ask some questions, and we'll get out of here. But, yeah, good stuff so far.
Yeah, there were some questions about that onside kick, and I feel like since we addressed that, we don't really have to go back and rehash it.
I know. Sorry.
No, that's okay.
Sorry, guys. Just read their names. Tell them hi.
But this first question is from @MoDiddy34. Why isn't anyone talking about the extremely poor lack of time management at the end of the second quarter? We got the ball with 1 minute left and went 3 and out and gave the ball back to West Virginia, and they came down to get a field goal to take the lead into the half.
I did not know that.
Yeah, this was probably one of the portions of the game that kind of got overlooked. Obviously, it's more than a 3-point margin, so maybe that's part of the reason that I don't think a lot of people kind of dove into that specific portion of the game. But yeah, KU, it seemed like, was going to have a chance to take a lead right before halftime because they got the ball, and I think they were near midfield, right?
Yeah, they were on their own 44-yard line. Yeah. Not only that, KU didn't call a timeout when they forced West Virginia into a 3 and out that drive before, so that when they took over. And so they got the ball at 2:07 left. If they call a timeout, they get the ball with 2:47 left with 56 yards to go. And then so on that drive, that last drive right before half, or at least KU's drive right before the half, they go to Herbert on the first down rush, 1 yard. Then they throw a screen pass to Puka Williams, 1 yard, and then you're looking at 3rd and long. And players talked about it this week, not getting in those situations, not getting in 3rd and long. Well, you eliminate that by at least having some sense of hurry up,
right,
or realization that, hey, this is our best chance to score. I think that might have been one of the better field position starts of the first half at least. And it was reasonable to expect, hey, 2 timeouts left, or I think they might have even had 3 to get down, 50-some yards in 2 minutes. That's manageable. And we saw that with how the offense ended up playing. I mean, they ended up averaging over 7 yards per play. So, yeah, that definitely was one of the more interesting decisions. I remember talking about it with a couple of my friends after the game, and that was one of the things they pointed out to and they were concerned with is it still seems like at some times that they're not exactly great at clock management skills.
Yeah, this comes to mind, and also the timeouts a couple of weeks. Was that the Coastal Carolina game? Fourth quarter timeouts.
Right.
Those come to mind. So yeah, these are definitely kind of problematic issues, especially if you're going to be in tight games, which both of these ended up being. The first half, I think people might, not everybody obviously, but some people might have overlooked it because of that. But it was just strange, and we talked with a lot of players over the past few days about like the first down runs that just went nowhere, right? And this was one of those occasions. They came out in great field position, and they just handed the ball to Khalil Herbert, and he, ran right into a linebacker, And then it was the next play. It was a short pass to Puka Williams. And so far, like, the pass plays for Puka have been pretty uninventive and not really putting him in great space to kind of do the Puka plays, as Les Miles has called it before. So I just feel like there are still plenty of things to iron out, and I think like how they're starting each series was kind of problematic in that first half.
It is interesting that I don't recall anyways they've ever lined Puka out wide this year. Maybe they have, and I just have missed it.
I think the only one I can remember was in that Coastal Carolina game. It was that 4th down that they were going for. And he initially lined up in the backfield, and then they motioned him out wide right. And the play was supposed to be for him, but he was just like going into this jumbled traffic, and the whole play was a mess.
And we kind of spoke about this last week. They had only ran like 12 plays with both Herbert and Puka through 3 games. So you would think, a way to have more success on first downs is by being more creative and creating hopefully mismatches and maybe lining up guys like Herbert or Puka in different spots where the defense is not used to. I would assume the coaching staff is aware of it, and that might help moving forward.
Yeah. What's next?
All right.
You guys did great there, by the way.
Just quickly, Jamie Fisher basically had a very similar question about the end of the first half. So Jamie Fisher was also paying attention to those final minutes.
Yeah. No, that's smart. That's good stuff.
Yeah. This is kind of a more tongue-in-cheek question, but I liked it nonetheless. It's from KP at NotAPuppet87. I wore the same KU polo to work on the Fridays before the 2 wins. The other ones before the losses wore something different. Did I make KU lose? Will they win if I wear the correct KU polo? What do you think? These are the hard-hitting questions.
I have a lot of thoughts. When I was a kid, I was convinced when my teams lost, it was something to do with my wardrobe or, man, I shouldn't have had fish sticks. I should have had chicken nuggets. Something, I was convinced of that. And it took me a while to shake those things. So I'm not going to say no, because I do believe everything that happens in the world affects everything else that happens in the world somehow, some way.
I'm actually still that way. The Ravens started off 2-0, and I wore the same shirt for week 3 because I believed
on Sunday.
Yeah, I believed that was the reason why the Ravens were winning, and they lost to the Chiefs. In case you didn't know,
what you should have realized, Shane, is that to beat the Chiefs, it takes a whole different animal. Right?
I need another shirt.
Should have tried it. You should have wore the stocking cap I bought you.
That's true.
I don't care. I don't care if it's summer or close to summer. I mean, do you want your team to win or not?
I do.
Okay, so KP at something puppet, wear your freaking right polo, man. It's that simple. I don't care if it's dirty, even if it's wrinkled, if it's dirty, who cares? It's that simple. So let us know what you do, and we'll track it. And I'm not going to say the fate of the Kansas football season lies on your shoulders, but I think you'd be letting a lot of people down if you wore the wrong polo. I mean, it's just that simple. So lock it in and figure it out, and then let us know how it went and what you did.
All right. The next question kind of caught me off guard. So
I thought you were going to say it's kind of the same thing.
No.
Stop it.
Here's another shirt question.
Yeah, unbelievable.
No, this question is from Aaron Mayer. When will we get to see a quarterback not named Carter Stanley take a snap and throw a pass? I like what we've gotten from Stanley. Just curious when we get to see somebody else throw the ball.
Yeah, I don't know why you'd want to.
Right. Maybe on a trick play.
There you go.
My section went crazy when they saw Manny Miles into the game.
Oh, sorry. His wasn't done. Okay.
Yeah. This was, you interjected.
I thought you were saying maybe on a trick play. I was like, you're very right, Ben.
Yeah.
As I should say, who is this? Aaron?
This is Aaron.
Yeah, you're very right, Aaron. Good call. I think so. I think that's what it'll take. I mean, a different quarterback. We already saw Parchment throw a ball. That was exciting as heck. So I go back to what I said, though. I don't know why you'd want to. I mean, Carter Stanley is this team's quarterback. He's their best option for a number of reasons, and he's now proven that over a decent sample size. We're not just talking about one game or one drive. I mean, he's the guy they want in there. Not just the coaches, I think the players, right? And so going with another guy to throw a pass just to see what it looks like is 2017 Kansas football or 2018 Kansas football or what we've seen in the past that was not good.
Yeah.
And so I don't think you'll see it. I mean, Benton, you asked this week, you asked Les at his Monday presser about Manny coming in for that, and he was pretty guarded about it. I mean, he didn't say, yeah, he's our number 2. He was for that play.
Right.
Wasn't that his direct answer? So
for that play.
Which is such a good answer. I mean, I'd have loved to hear the true breakdown and all that. That's more interesting. But I do love the answer.
I assumed something like that was coming. I didn't think he was going to say, well, actually, Thomas McVitie is our backup quarterback.
Right.
But for this specific situation, we wanted Manny Miles. But also, having watched that all play out, Manny Miles is the backup quarterback, or at least he was this past week.
Well, there's some signs, right? I mean, in week 2, I believe it was the Coastal Carolina game where Carter was struggling. You look down on the sideline. We talked about this. Yeah, he was throwing, and he was throwing with McVitie, but only one of them had a helmet on.
Right.
And does that mean anything? Maybe, maybe not. But it's a sign. It's something. It's a hint. It's a small indicator of maybe if they were going to make a change that game, the guy with his helmet was going to go in. And so there are enough of those little things. I mean, this is the guy who went in, right? Yeah. I mean, he actually did go in as the number 2.
You have to do that immediately.
Right.
Like every single play, anybody can get hurt. And
for sure,
there's always somebody waiting on the sidelines wearing a helmet to go in and replace
knowing
them
they're ready.
If you're doing your job, which obviously they were. They didn't have to call a timeout or anything.
Yeah.
Manny Miles had his helmet on. Manny Miles was on the field. And then he came right back out because Carter was fine.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
I assume the question is about the trick play aspect of it. He's hoping, I guess, there's a package that involves Manny Miles throwing the ball.
Yeah, that's what I kind of assumed. Because, I mean, you wouldn't – the way that Carter Stanley has played the past couple of games, I mean, it's not that people are, like, clamoring to see somebody else.
But the question is why would you want it to be a quarterback throwing the ball when you've seen Puka Williams throw the football? You've seen now Andrew Parchment throw the football. If there's going to be a trick play involving someone else throw the ball, I would imagine it's one of those two because it would definitely attract the defense to where they think, hey, they're actually getting the ball on this play, and then boom, they throw it over to the defense.
Yeah.
Because someone got behind. So I wouldn't put it past this coaching staff to come up with some trick play. I mean, going back to the onside kick, Liam Jones had to fake an injury just so that they kept West Virginia off guard for that onside kick. So I wouldn't put it past the coaching staff to come up with some sort of trick play involving a quarterback, but I would think that it would more likely involve Parchment or Puka.
Yeah. Well, since you mentioned some more trickeration, I'm going to go directly to our guy, Frank Saunders.
The big guy, Frankie Saunders. Awesome.
But Frank said Liam Jones' quote-unquote injury to set up an onside kick was next level. But did we break that out too early? Not in the game, but in the season. I thought that was a good point because, so Matt, you didn't get to see the game, but basically what happened was KU was obviously about to go out for their kickoff after scoring, and Liam Jones kind of put his hand on his hamstring like, oh, I'm tightening up. I got to get out of there.
Man down!
Yeah, so Jacob Borchilla came out for the kickoff, which is obviously not who's usually out there.
Right.
And then had his little pooch onside attempt, which seemed to work well before the flags. But
I love it, man. I love it. That's that's coaching. That's preparation. That's not laying down in an end zone to blend in with the color of the end zone. That's different. Now, I didn't hate that one. I didn't love it. What was that? Smoking Joe DeForest?
Yeah.
Right? That was his play?
Sloppy Joe.
Sloppy Joe. Yeah, there you go. Right. Shout out to Tom Keegan there for the nickname. But yeah, this one is, I mean, that goes back to even just trying the onside kick. You are so detailed in your preparation that you are coaching kids to, after a play that they're on the field for, fake an injury so you can sell that that's happened so that you can get the other thing out there, so you can get that out there without really much notice or recognition, and then so you can pull this other thing off, or at least attempt to. That is fine work. I mean, that is detailed preparation, and that is the kind of stuff across the board, up and down, week after week, day after day, that it's going to take for Kansas football to build from this start and to build for the future. So that's great stuff. And I don't know. I didn't see Liam's acting job. I mean,
pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You thought it was career ending?
No, not like that. It wasn't overly dramatic.
Good.
It was appropriately dramatic, I thought.
There you go. Good.
But yeah. Someone asked Les about this, I think on the Big 12 call. And he didn't really go into too many details, but he basically joked like, yeah, I don't know what's his hamstring still's bothering him.
Yes. Look out. Opening kickoff at Fort Worth. You just don't know who he's going to put out there.
No, but I would no one has said this yet specifically, but I'm going to just give credit to special teams coordinator Mike Eckler for that one.
Yeah.
Because that's exactly the type of thing that he would dream up, and have they probably practice it.
Absolutely.
We haven't talked to Liam Jones about that yet, and we don't get to talk to coaches during the season for whatever reason. So haven't talked to Eckler about it either, but would love to kind of get some insight on that at some point. But
put it on the list, right?
Yeah. But I liked Frank's question, like, did you pull this too early in the season?
I don't think so.
I agree.
And it's because I would obviously go back to a betting line. This was a 4.5 point spread. That's the first time KU's been less than a touchdown underdogs since 2014. This was ideally your most winnable conference game. And so if you're going to go out with all the stops, the trickery, I mean, this is what you're going to use it for, is this game, because the rest of the games on your schedule are not going to be as winnable. And so I don't think you want to bust out this type of play for
Yeah, you want to use it in a chance where it can win you a game, not where it can keep you within 2 touchdowns. I mean, right, I agree. But I mean, it's not a bad thought. Frank Saunders always with the good thoughts, but it really isn't. I mean, it makes you think, well, they've kind of burned it now, right? Next time Liam Jones limps off after a PAT, the other team's going to be like, well, we know what's coming, or at least ready for it, even if it doesn't come. So, anytime you burn a good trick play, it's always too early, unless it's in the national championship game or something, right? So I get that side of it, but I'm with Shane. I mean, that was a winnable game. You got to go get it.
There you go.
And I like the chance. Let's take 2 more and get out of here.
All right. El Gigante actually had a couple questions. One of them's fake, so we don't have to actually answer it, but then we'll get to the real one. First one was, why did the Big 12 and NCAA hate us? But the real question...
I bet it's not a fake question.
Well,
I bet he really wants to know.
Probably in his heart of hearts, that's something he's wondering about. More seriously, shouldn't Miles be focused on getting Parchment more touches instead of getting Puka more touches?
Well, I want to ask you about that because during the press conference, I tweeted, hey, Les is talking about that Puka has to be an automatic 10 touches a game guy. Well, he has been.
Yeah.
And I tweeted that, and everybody was like, what? Typo. Wrong.
That's what he said.
That is what he said, because in your story on Wednesday, that's what he said.
Right.
You've got it quoted in there. So that confused me. I mean, the sentiment is fine.
Right.
Yes, we want to get Puka the ball more.
Right.
But why 10? I don't understand
I
that.
don't know.
I mean,
That was a little-
he's been way over 10
Yes.
all 3 games he's played.
Yeah. Yeah, he had 17 in week 3, and that was his season low.
Season low, right.
But yeah, I think 24 in each of the first 2 games. And in my story, I kind of broke it down, percentage-wise, it was actually more than he had at Boston
There you
College.
go, yeah.
So he was involved appropriately. They just didn't run enough plays in the first half more than anything.
Yeah.
That's
so
where they ended up in a deficit. But Andrew Parchment has been awesome this year.
Oh yeah, newcomer of the week this week.
Yeah.
You wrote about that earlier, and that's no small feat in the Big 12, man. You with basketball, you get used to it every week. It's KU either player of the week or newcomer of the week
Or freshman of the week.
or freshman of the week, right? Somebody won something every week, and it's kind of like you just I guess I'll put that in there. Got to get that up, whatever. In football for Kansas, that's a big honor.
Yeah, it was
And,
kind of
and well deserved,
right.
man. He's a talented dude.
Yeah, it was kind of strange last year when Puka won so many of those, because it doesn't happen, as you mentioned, very often for KU football. But Andrew Parchment has kind of blown people away with how good he is, how quickly. I know I have been, because I mean, I definitely heard his teammates talk about his skills, dating back to the spring, but you hear that year after year about certain guys,
Like Evan Fairs.
your boy.
He's killing it this year.
But I mean, like, you have to, unless you've seen it with your own eyes, I at least have gotten to a point where, like, I'm just not going to believe it.
So
right?
yeah, I agree, and I thought I'm glad this was a question, because this is fun to talk about. I mean, somebody asked Les about Parchment on Monday. He said the thing that sets him out, right, is his incredible ball skills. I mean, he goes up, he snags it, and he puts it away quicker than anyone I've seen, or as quick as anybody I've seen, I think is what he said. And then he went on to mention Odell Beckham. I mean, and you know what? David Beatty used to do that. Chase Harrell reminds me of Mark Evans. Okay, whatever. He hadn't even played yet. That's the thing. I mean, he hadn't even played yet when Beatty was saying that stuff. That was on signing day. And I'm not hating on that either, because it probably did, and it was probably genuine. But in this moment, you're talking about Odell, who's a top 5 receiver in the league, in the NFL, and you're talking about it for a reason. This skill reminds me of this skill, and we've all seen player X do this skill. And so I think it carries more weight. Number one, it carries more weight because it's Les Miles. Number two, I think it carries more weight because we've actually seen it, and we can all picture, oh, yeah, he does do that. Oh, God, Odell does that too. All those things. So Les Miles is not shy with the compliments, man. He throws those around. He's talking about Puka playing in the league. He's talked before about Khalil Herbert playing in the league and his vision. I mean, now he's throwing the name Odell Beckham in the sentence when he's talking about Parchment. I mean, he's not wrong. I mean, like Parchment's ability to go get the ball and control himself and play it all the way through and I mean, he's a talented player. There's no doubt. But it does catch your eye or your ear, sorry, when you do hear those things. And
eye 2, nose 3.
there you go. Right. And so I think that's cool that this question came up, because I think that stuff, I mean, that's incredible stuff for less freaking miles to be talking like that about a guy like that. I mean, that's to us answering a question on a press conference day. You can only imagine what he's talking to Parchment about when he's coaching him on the field, when he's talking with him in his office or whatever. I mean, this guy knows how to build these kids up, and I think that's a huge part of the reason that they've had a pretty good start to this season, and that they are, again, watchable.
What's interesting is that Parchment said, his best skill is, the deep ball, like him getting behind the defense and his speed and his ability to get back. And I think that's why, this question makes a lot of sense, is because it goes back to just the original idea. KU needs to avoid these stacked boxes by taking deep shots. And if you have Parchment one-on-one with a corner, there's no safety over the top. That's the time that you got to take a chance. If that's really his best skill set, take a chance. The defense will respect you that way, and it'll open things up, and then you can get Puka even more touches. So I think, honestly, the idea of getting Puka more involved maybe comes down to getting Parchment even more involved in the passing game.
Yeah, I think the reason this question was made, you look at Parchment's stats, 5 catches, 132 yards, 2 touchdowns. Why is this question coming up? Well, his first catch was a 75-yard touchdown.
Yeah, right.
In the third quarter. So that's why it's an interesting question. And I talked to Carter Stanley the other day about this, and he just said, first of all, that they weren't running a lot of plays. They were, having to punt too many times in the first half. So that kind of affects what you can do offensively. But he just said his reads kind of, for whatever reason, weren't taking him Parchment's direction. It's not like he was actively being like, no, I don't want to throw the ball to him.
Oh, he wants to.
He definitely wants to.
Yeah.
Those guys have a great chemistry so far, and that's been huge for the spacing on offense. And this is why it's a watchable offense,
right,
because of Andrew Parchment and Puka Williams and Khalil Herbert and their ability to make plays one-on-one.
Yeah, well said. I think they've got to get the ball to a lot of guys, so that takes away the desperate need to just get it to one.
Especially when you run 40 plays.
Yeah.
So and it's hard to get
it's
guys
a great
involved.
spot to be in. It really is. Of course, you want to get as many touches for Puka and as many balls to Parchment and all that, but guess what? When you have that many guys you want to get the ball to, that means you've got a pretty good offense. Mm-hmm. So that's good news, and it keeps coming down to Carter Stanley running the offense and getting the ball where it needs to be. So, last question.
Oh, I thought that was the last question.
No way.
You
got one more?
Yeah, we definitely have one more.
All right, cool.
Okay.
I said 2 more, and then you said one of them was a fake one, and
okay.
It turned crazy there for a minute.
Our math is
I lost
count
too.
Yeah.
What happened? I blacked out.
This question is from Chris at Soto Moho. How much will they win by against TCU?
Love it. Good finish. This
Follow
is awesome.
up. Yes. Are we allowed to tear down the goalposts in Fort Worth?
Oh, you're going. Cool.
I'd say best of luck with the goalposts.
What the hell,
game.
right?
Yeah,
Go for it.
For those,
it's a good
those KU fans who are in attendance, I'm not going to advise you to rush the field and tear those things down.
But if you want to do it, we'll write about it.
And someone will probably YouTube it.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So
it's a great environment to do it too. That field is intimate and intimate, and you can get down on the field pretty quick. The goalposts are right there. It's not like it's Darrell K. Royal Stadium at Texas where you got to go a mile to get just down to the field. So, if you're considering it after the game, then I'd say that's good news for Kansas, because that would mean they probably won, or you're really drunk. I don't know which one.
But yeah, Shane, what did the line move down to?
It's all the way down to 14.5, I believe.
What did it open at?
It was 20.
Yeah.
No, it might be 15.5. I think 15.5 sounds more right.
It was 20 though?
It was 20.
Wow.
That was the opening, but it went
fast
down
16.5
within an hour.
Okay. Yeah.
And then now it's down to 15.5, I believe.
Like
we all, including Braden Shaw, we all took West Virginia to cover last week. They barely did, by the way.
Right.
But we all did. I didn't even consider it. I thought KU needed to win that game and could, but I just thought West Virginia would. So
I think me and Shane both picked 27-20 as our final score.
Yes.
Right?
So when the line opened up at 7 points or 7.5 points, that's when it was conflicting. But when it was down to 4.5 by the time we did that for the KU Sports.
And I think this is the Les Miles effect, right? I think people are like, well, KU's a better team than they used to be. I think that's a lot of points.
Mm-hmm.
It is, but it's on the road. It's against a good TCU team that just lost to a good SMU team. No chump SMU team. So I think it's a bad week for Kansas to catch TCU. I think they are going to be
coming off that
focused
loss.
and a little bit embarrassed, and sort of like the Texas Tech basketball after losing to KU here last year. That just forced them to get locked in and pissed off, and I think that's what kind of TCU team KU is gonna find. So coaching will be a huge part of this one. It's a huge part of every game, but I think Les Miles and his coaching staff are going to have to find a way to steal some opportunities and steal some things. And I'm not saying the fake injury onside kick. I mean, don't use that one this week. If you do, I bet they think it's coming. So not that, but just different taking different chances. And so So I don't know. I mean, how much do we win by? That was the question.
Yeah, right.
I love the question. I love that people are still talking like that
Yeah.
5 weeks in. It tells you a lot about where this program is at currently. I can't see KU winning this game though, and I probably, I mean, spoiler alert, but I'll probably pick TCU to cover.
You did.
There you go. Spoiler
I've already
alert.
seen this.
Spoiler alert. Yeah. So
This KU team is definitely confident. They definitely feel like they should go down there and compete.
right.
That obviously doesn't mean you're going to win, but I would not be surprised at all if they cover. And I know the players don't care about covering, but
No.
I'm expecting it to be another quote unquote watchable game.
Are you? Cool.
Where KU competes.
What's
TCU
the
has had
biggest
issues.
reason for that?
I just think that the momentum is big. I think the coaches are getting a better sense of what works with the personnel the farther this season goes along. And
Sure.
obviously that I'm sure that happens everywhere. TCU and Gary Patterson are realizing things just like Les Miles and his staff are. And you adjust and you kind of as throughout this whole season you hopefully make the proper adjustments and keep improving. And I do think that KU has shown since that Coastal Carolina game that they are capable of, having solid game plans, and the confidence isn't lacking. I think the most interesting thing will be TCU's defense should easily be kind of the fastest defenders that this KU offense will have seen. So if it goes the wrong way for KU, I could see it being because of that, because KU isn't able to sustain any success against skilled, faster defensive backs and linebackers.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, 41-21, not unheard of.
No.
And you mentioned a 10-point loss or something down there would be a good sign of progress.
Yeah.
What would you say at 41-21? And we'll be back next week to talk about it. But I mean, I guess it depends on how it happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. But I think it'll be a better game than that.
Yeah,
honestly.
the defense has played good. 41's a lot. If you can hang 41 on KU right now, I mean, that'd be impressive. But TCU has the pieces to do it, and they will be at home, and again they will be motivated beyond belief. Number one, you just lost to SMU. You don't like that.
Yeah.
Number two, you lost to Kansas last year.
Right.
You definitely don't like that. Number three, you don't want to lose to Kansas ever, let alone again. So. There is no like TCU won't have or KU won't have TCU's attention. That's not here.
Mm-hmm.
They have TCU is fully attentive in this game for all those reasons and more. And Gary Patterson's going to have a big part in that. So it'll be interesting. I mean, I'm with you though, man. If it's watchable, win. Period. If it's a watchable game, it's a win for this program, for building, and for where they're trying to go. That's at this point. It's all you need to do. If you can find a way to win one of these games, two of these games over the next 8 weeks or whatever, 9 weeks.
8 games.
There you go. Right. Then there you go. I mean, then man, that would be major accomplishments. But if you can just make these games worth watching all the way to the end, you've won the season. And I was not saying that after the Coastal Carolina game. Neither were you.
Nope.
Nor was anybody. I mean, I think a lot of people thought that this was a lost season already, and they've showed some fight and resolve and turned it around to the point that they're still relevant and they're still mattering. And I mean, one of these times, they're going to win a game like this, unexpected, that really gets people's attention, and it's going to be mind blowing when it happens. It's going to be really, really interesting to watch and cover and be a part of. And there's no prediction for when it'll come, so it could come this week. But yeah, I don't know if anybody will be jumping on the field for goalposts after this one. If so, though, I'm telling you, Benton said it. Somebody will YouTube it, and we will write about it.
I might YouTube it.
There you go.
Actually, I will. That's my promise to you.
You're somebody, man. You are somebody. Any other final thoughts, Shane? You want to chime in, or should we just wrap this baby up?
Well, I was just saying, in terms, you were talking about winnable games. I mean, this might be KU's most winnable game left on its schedule. I mean, there's a chance you could argue Texas Tech. But ideally, if you think KU is going to win 3 games, this might be it. So I spoiler alert, might be picking KU to cover in this one because I think the matchup might be in KU's favor. It might be the first time we all disagree on the KU pick, by the way.
Benton's picking someone other than KU or TCU?
Yeah. I meant like as a sports staff. But yes.
I got you. Yeah, no, interesting. Well, go put your Ravens shirt on. Yeah. Good luck to you this week. My guy, I hope you're wearing your polo shirt this week. I hope it's the right one. Please, I forget his name, but please, was that KP?
I believe
Puppet.
so.
Please let us know what you decided. That is important stuff. Shane still believes in Santa Claus and still wears his game day shirts. So I want to hear what you do. This is important stuff. And so is KU football. All of a sudden, they're in week 5, and people are interested and excited, and that's all you can ask for in year 1 of Les Miles. So let's see if it keeps rolling this week. Benton will be down there in Fort Worth, Texas, for the KU TCU game, and we'll be back here next week for another episode of the KU Sports Hour here at KUsports.com. Thanks for checking out this episode, and we will talk to you guys again real soon.